Most of that disorderly unwinding of the yen carry trade done by short-term speculative money, that's mostly out of the trade. And so from here on in, we should see a more sort of smoother flow. That's not to say that dollar yen goes back above 155 or whatever. No, I think the upside in dollar yen is definitely limited to say around the 150 to 152 area. But I think that the period of moving substantially lower from here to the mid-130's is probably a story for much later this year, when we actually start to see Fed rate cuts and we start to see the Bank of Japan tightening once again. We need to see that yield compression between the Fed funds and the Bank of Japan overnight rate by at least about 200 basis points in my view.
But you think that, and this is what started the entire market rout around the yen carry trade unwinding story, is that how dovish does the Fed get, and correspondingly, how hawkish does the BOJ get?
Right.
Like, would they commensurate the gap?
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, what the markets are pricing for the Fed, 40 basis points for September. So they're deliberating between 25 or 50. They're pricing about 110 basis points to year end for the Fed, and about 200 basis points by the middle of next year. We think that's a tad too aggressive. Even notwithstanding what Chair Powell said at the Jackson Hole Symposium. So I think that rates can potentially back up a bit in the U.S. The Bank of Japan probably now knows and understands that the U.S. is going to be in a softer landing environment, because that's what the Fed is targeting. And so it will not hesitate to raise rates if its July forecasts are met for Japan. So we'll probably see a 25 before the end of the year from the BOJ. I think in the case of the Fed, we have been consistent in saying 75 basis points this year. So there's a little bit of room to back up. This is why I say dollar yen can back up a bit, because U.S. rates could trade a bit higher. But next year, as we see further cuts from the Fed and we see more tightening from the BOJ and the potential for faster than expected tightening, that should bring the dollar yen remarkably lower, visibly lower to the mid-130's.